Well, good day everybody, and thank you for joining me on what I promise to be a game-changing, jam-packed, informational, take notes like crazy session. My goal for you today is to provide you with a simple and a proven formula that if you put what you discover today into action will change your sales results for the better. So just by way of a format for this session, basically we're going to be doing three things. So firstly, I'm going to give you a broad overview of the Get More Sales Now formula. And then I'm going to dive in and give you the details of the formula itself and how you can apply the formula. And I'll actually give you a 5-step recipe exercise for you to take back and apply to very quickly ramp up the productivity of your salespeople so that you can start to get an instant result for investing your time here with me on this webinar today. And then towards the end, I'll share with you a little bit about a very special live event that's coming up and how you can get more information if you're interested. And then finally, I'll give you the download link for you to go and access the free tools and bonuses that I'll be talking about within the content of today's webinar. So we've got a lot to cover in the next 40 to 50 minutes, so just let's dive straight in without any more fanfare, and let me begin by asking you a question. What would happen to your ability to achieve your sales numbers if you were able to just increase the productivity, the capacity, the efficiency of your sales team by just a factor of 10%? In other words, if you could just get your salespeople to do more, so to focus their attention and their efforts on those very specific activities that lead to building and bringing in new business. So here we're talking about those specific sales activities that grow existing business or that move sales opportunities faster through sales pipelines. And imagine if you could do that just by 10%. What would the impact be of that kind of additional productivity on your sales numbers? Okay, so my next question then is, what if you were able to increase the quality of the work your salespeople did, also by a factor of 10%? In other words, imagine you were able to improve the quality of their communication, or the quality of their interactions, and the quality of the compelling nature of their presentations, and the quality of their ability to move the sale forward. So what we're talking about here is improving the capability of your salespeople so that they were able to win a greater percentage of the proposals they were putting out there. What sort of impact is that going to have on your ability to achieve your sales numbers? I mean, imagine if your people could qualify leads more effectively, or if they were more effective at, say, winning the approval of key decision makers, or better still, getting access to those key decision makers. So imagine they were just 10% more effective. What sort of impact would that have on your ability to achieve your sales numbers at the end of the day? And then the final key question that I want to ask you is, what if you could take your sales team, just as they are right now, and you could dial up their motivation by 10%? So in other words, you could ramp up how excited, how pumped up they are just to get out there and do what they know they should be doing. And what if you could do that again by, say, 10% without throwing any more money their way? What would that do for your business? Well, in essence, that's really what I'm going to show you here on this webinar today. We're going to take these three elements of productivity, of quality, and of motivation, and we're going to give you the very simple formula that is used by some of the world's most effective sales managers to drive up sales performance. And then I'm going to walk you through a simple 5-step formula, a recipe that you can take out and use pretty much immediately to instantly ramp up the productivity of your salespeople. Because as I'll explain to you later, that's where you can get the quickest leap in sales performance. In fact, it wouldn't be unrealistic to get a jump in performance of a minimum of 10% and even highs of 20 to 30%. We have had a number of students that have gone through our Get More Sales Now formula intensive training and implementation program who've achieved increases of over 40% using this 5-step sales productivity optimizer exercise that I'm going to be covering off with you in detail here today. So many of us are out there looking for that magic wand, that silver bullet solution, and today's webinar may or may not be that for you. But I can assure you it's going to come close, because from wherever you and your business are currently sitting, whatever the quality of leads that you're generating or whatever the quality of your sales team is right now, no matter if you're operating in a highly competitive or crowded market, even if you have no clear differentiation or value proposition that puts you in front of your competitors, you're going to get some answers today. You know, I know that we've worked with many sales managers who only have a few of their salespeople that are actually hitting their sales numbers. So even if you just have 1 or 2 of your salespeople hitting their targets, and you're struggling in really tough market conditions, from a standing start, when you implement this really simple sales management formula, you'll increase the percentage of your sales reps hitting their targets and winning more proposals consistently. Okay, so I'm going to show you how this formula will work for you in spite of the fact that you might be undergoing some serious budget cuts and that you have a lot fewer resources at your fingertips to enable you to get the job done. I mean, I know that certainly there are a number of sales managers that we work with that have their own sales budgets that they also have to deliver on top of managing the sales team. So this formula is going to help with that too. So let me share the formula with you. And that said, before I do that, I think it's important that I share with you the genesis of how this really simple sales performance improvement formula came into being. You know, 5 years ago when I founded the Sales Coach Academy, my intention was really focused on teaching sales managers how to coach and how to train their salespeople to hit their sales numbers consistently. And in doing so over the years, it also offered up numerous opportunities for me to work with senior sales leadership to help them at both a strategic as well as a tactical level with their sales turnaround and sales improvement efforts. And as a consequence of this involvement, I've had the great opportunity to author and co-author and publish a number of books and ebooks that deal specifically with solving the problems that some of these organizations have been faced with in getting their salespeople to achieve profitable sales. And so over the last decade, doing a lot of the sales turnaround work that I have, it's become apparent to me that there are not hundreds of different issues or challenges that clients of sales organizations are typically faced with. In fact, even in highly competitive and ever-changing markets, what we found was that there were certain patterns and sequences that really created the vast majority of sales management headaches. And in fact, what we found was that these headaches typically fell into 7 different buckets. And so over the years, we developed the Get More Sales Now formula specifically to quickly identify and then address these core 7 issues. And in fact, I'm actually going to give you the very same audit tool that we use when we go into an organization to determine which of the key 7 buckets are providing them with the most headaches. And I'm going to give you that as a PDF bonus just for sticking with me until the end of this webinar, so that I can let you know how you can get your hands on this very, very powerful audit tool. By the way, typically when we conduct an audit of this nature, we typically charge anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000 for clients to actually implement the audit, and I'm going to give it to you as my gift here today. So make sure to download it and apply it, and it will actually help you to pinpoint those specific areas that you need to address to turn around or to improve the sales performance of your team. All right, so let's dive in. Let's take a look at the Get More Sales Now formula. But let me say this. It's my hope that you're going to look at this formula and many of you are going to say to yourself, boy, that looks obvious. And that's really the whole point, because in fact, that's the power of the formula. The power of the formula is its simplicity. You know, it's been said that simplicity is the ability to take something that is really complicated and lay it down in such a way that people go, oh boy, that's really obvious. But just because something is obvious or simple doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be easy to get it done or to implement. It's one thing to know something, it's another thing to implement and to apply it. So I urge you not to discount the value of this formula because you look at it and see it as so simple, because therein lies the genius. As Leonardo da Vinci once said about simplicity, he said that simplicity is ultimate sophistication. And in fact, if you think about it, probably the best example of simplicity is the Google homepage. It's pure, it's white with just a little space to type in what you're looking for. However, behind that simple white space is a world of complexity. So I urge you not to be lulled into a false sense of security by the simple nature of the formula that I'm about to expose to you. Rather, let's understand it as a synthesis of nearly 2 decades of research and work that I have had in this field, breaking down the complex nature of the sales management process and all the things that as sales leaders we should and shouldn't be doing to drive our people to sell more and to sell more profitably. And what I've done is I've chunked it down into a 7 simple step formula that must be in place if you want to achieve the sales traction and impact in your current market environment. So that said, let me show you the formula and let me then explain to you how you can go about applying it. Okay, so the first thing I'd like you to do is take out a piece of paper. All right, and then like I have on the screen, I'd like you to draw 3 interconnecting circles. Now in the top left-hand circle, I want you to write the words right people. So R-I-G-H-T, people. In the bottom circle, I want you to write right proficiency. And in the top right circle, I want you to write right process. So what you have here are the 3 core pieces of the puzzle: having the right people, having the right proficiency or capability, and having the right sales process all form the foundation upon which the world's most successful sales teams stand. Now, even though we're drawing them in circles, effectively they form the base of a triangle. So if you think of a pyramid, the base of the pyramid is where all the strength is. And the strength of your sales team is in having the right people and the right sales processes and having the right proficiency or the right capability, so to speak, as the foundation of getting the job done. Now, the core middle layer of your pyramid of a successful sales team is the other key element of the formula, and that is there are three key drivers that ensure you get the sales results you're looking for. The first driver is productivity, the second driver is quality, and the third driver is motivation. And we're going to go into each of these in depth in just a moment. But for right now, let's understand that the middle section of your pyramid is made up of the core essential drivers being productivity, quality, and motivation. And then right at the top of the pyramid, you have your results. In other words, the result that you're currently getting from all the key elements in your pyramid to this point. So again, these are the results that are coming from your people, from your process, from your proficiency, from the productivity, from the quality of their interactions, and from their motivation. So let me shift your thinking for a moment and give you an analogy. Let's say that the base of your pyramid, being the right people, the right process, and the right proficiency, let's say that they form the framework and the chassis of a motor car. The R in our process, the results, these are the gauges we use to monitor the performance of the vehicle, just as these are the same gauges and the same measures that we use to monitor the performance of the sales team. So in management, we know that what gets measured gets done. So what are the specific results that we're looking for from our sales team to deliver on a consistent basis? That's our dashboard. Now, we get our results from the engine. And what is the engine? Well, for the purposes of this analogy, let's say the engine, which is the workhorse of the car, is productivity. So this is the focused activity that the salespeople need to do on a daily basis that drives their sales forward. In other words, this is the focused effort that they put into generating the sales that you need to hit your numbers. Now, to productivity, we add Q, and Q is for quality. It's the quality of the work that they deliver. So in terms of our motor vehicle, we said that the chassis and the framework is the right people, the right process, and the right proficiency. We said that the dashboard is the results that we are getting or that we expect, and the sales team's productivity is our engine. Well, the quality in terms of our motor vehicle is the type of engine and the type of components that the engine has. Because it stands to reason that the better quality of the engine itself and all of its componentry, then the more efficient it is and the more effective it is at delivering us to our results. In other words, the better the quality of our inputs, the better quality outputs that our engine delivers. So no doubt at some point in your sales career you've been taught that sales is purely a numbers game. Well, really, the point of quality is to optimize those numbers, to achieve more out of less. In other words, to be able to squeeze more juice out of the same orange, using less numbers to deliver a greater outcome. And so in terms of our sales team, when we talk about quality, we're talking about the quality of their capability in all aspects of the sales process. So how capable are they in terms of the critical sales skills that effective salespeople have, whether it's business development or their ability to get in and diagnose needs or develop opportunities, whether it's their ability to effectively engage with all key decision makers and present compelling and a viable case for our products and services. And then there's the quality of the way that they wrap up the sale and bring home the business. And we're also, by the way, talking about the way they manage and prioritize their time in order to get everything they need done. So these are the qualitative aspects of what it is that your sales team does. And the point is that each one of these qualities can be dialed up to deliver greater output, to deliver a greater sales result. And by the way, let me give you a hint here, because when it comes to improving the quality of the interactions that your salespeople have with your customer, the questions that you need to be asking here is not, can you improve the quality of all of those communications by 10%? But rather, the real question that you need to be asking here, and this is the secret. So I'd be making a note and definitely writing this one down, because when you look and consider all the areas of your sales process that are open for quality improvement, what are the key points of leverage that by upgrading just those skills of your salespeople and improving just those interactions with the customer at that point not only get you a 10% lift, but a 15, 20, or 30% lift in sales performance? And in fact, in the program I'm going to tell you about later, we'll actually walk you through a process whereby you can easily identify what are those key leverage points to really dial them up, to maximize the impact of your salespeople in their interactions with your customers and prospects. Okay, so back to our motor car. So if we have a sturdy and reliable chassis and framework, and if we've got a productive quality engine, then what we need is we need fuel. And in sales, the fuel we're talking about here is the M for motivation. Now, motivation is really the propellant. It's the juice that keeps our salespeople consistently moving forward month in and month out, quarter in, quarter out. The M is that ingredient that keeps people driving forward even when things get really tough. What is that one special ingredient that has one salesperson making their first sales call at 7:30 in the morning and doing whatever they can to put in the hard yards and put in the effort to learn and to grow, whereas you get other salespeople who are still hanging around the water cooler or the coffee shop and are still in the office by 11 o'clock in the morning, still haven't seen a customer. And so this is the M. This is the motivation. This is the fuel. This is the juice that ultimately separates those who will make it and those who won't, those who will be superstars and those who will be lemons and keep going from one sales job to another, never getting traction and never making a success. All right, so here we have our performance ingredients. We have productivity. We have quality, and we have motivation. Each of those elements can be increased to dramatically increase the sales output of your sales team. Now that said, if you know anything about a motor car, you'll notice that even if you've got a great chassis and you've got a great dashboard and you've got a great engine and you fill the car with the best possible fuel, at the end of the day, that car is not going to deliver performance until and unless you can put the car into gear. And in fact, the gearbox is the multiplying effect. This is the number one skill that the world's greatest sales managers employ to multiply and to maximize and to optimize and to accelerate their sales team to deliver consistent sales results. And for the purpose of our analogy, the gearbox is called sales performance coaching. And in fact, sales performance coaching was actually the foundational signature program that we started the Sales Coach Academy with, and that we still run here today because it is so foundational to the success of any sales manager who's looking to deliver consistent sales numbers month in and month out. Okay, so now that we've gone through the basics of the formula, let me show you how it works. Let me show you how you can use this formula to increase your sales performance of your team by 30% plus over the next 90 days. So firstly, let's assume that you're really clear on the results you're expecting. Then also, let's apply this formula to your sales team exactly the way it is currently. So no changes to the current people lineup, no changes to your sales process, and no changes to the skills that your salespeople currently bring to the party. So in other words, from right where you are right now, let me show you how you use the Get More Sales Now formula to get a 30% increase in sales performance. So let's start by taking the P for productivity. What actually is productivity in sales? Well, one of the key productivity measures in sales is the percentage of time salespeople spend actively selling to customers. And the key words here are actively engaged in selling to customers. So I think it's important for us to be really clear on what we mean by actively engaged in selling. So here we're talking about a salesperson's percentage of active selling time. Now, active selling time doesn't include customer service calls or pop-in how you doing calls or follow-up calls. Active selling time doesn't include admin activities, it doesn't include paperwork or filling out reports or training or sales meetings. It doesn't even include firefighting and solving customer problems, whether they be out in the field or back at the office. All we're talking about here is people in front of or on the phone to customers actively engaged in the sales process. Now, I'm actually going to give you an exercise to do which will walk you through a simple 5-step recipe that you can use immediately after this webinar to increase the productivity of your sales team. But before I do, let me say this about sales productivity. Sales productivity is the easiest place to go for a sales performance increase, because really, you're not having to change any major behavior here. It's about process. It's about different ways of doing things. Whereas if you want to get improvement in capability, well, here we're talking about coaching and training and skill development and behavior change, which is really not easy because you've got to go through the 4 stages of the learning process, which takes time. And you know for yourself, if you've ever tried to get change in behavior as a result of, say, putting your people through a sales training workshop, then you know how difficult it is to get that shift in behavior. However, with productivity, it's about figuring out where the productivity gains can come from. Then we map them out in a plan, and then we follow up to ensure that that plan is implemented. Productivity is the easiest place to get low-hanging fruit. Start here. And it's for that reason that researchers have been unpacking sales productivity and looking under the microscope as to what salespeople really do for decades now. And so from this research, we know that the vast majority of salespeople are working at only a fraction of their true capacity. In fact, the research tells us that in terms of productive time, which is time, as I said, actively engaged in selling to customers, that time ranges from as low as 11% to highs of 40%. And it's interesting to note that in the majority of cases, most salespeople believe they actually spend twice as much time actively selling to customers than they actually do. So all that being said, we know that right now within your sales team, there is excess capacity for greater sales productivity. There is a whole lot more time that they could actively use to engage in selling. So the question you need to be asking is, what if you could get your salespeople on your sales team to invest just 15% more time actively engaged in selling? And then based on your current conversion rate, so we're not changing anything in terms of the way they deliver, their current quality, the performance, just purely based on what it is they're doing right now, the current conversion rate. If you could get your salespeople right now to invest 15% more time actively selling to customers, what would that equate to in terms of additional sales? Now we'll come back to productivity after I've covered off the other aspects of the formula, because I've promised you that I'll walk you through a 5-step optimization recipe that you can start applying as soon as this webinar is finished to increase the active selling time of your salespeople. But for right now, let's assume you've got capacity that you can dial up, and therefore you could pretty easily increase the productivity of your salespeople by 10 to 15%. Okay, great. So we've got our 15% increase in productivity. Now to that, let's add an additional 10% by increasing the quality of those critical sales actions that move the sale forward. So by way of an example, let's say that you've determined that getting the initial appointment with a potential prospect is a critical key trigger or leverage point in your sales process. So once you've done that, then you need to determine what are the specific skills, what are the specific tools, what are the specific resources, what are the mental frameworks or mindsets, and what are the applications that your salespeople need to use in order for them to generate that initial sales appointment. Because if you don't actually get in to see the prospect, then you're never going to get the sale off the ground. So setting the appointment then becomes a critical leverage point. So I love the quote from Sun Tzu in The Art of War, which really illustrates this point. And he says that should the enemy strengthen his van, then he is weakening his rear. And should he strengthen his rear, then effectively he's weakening his van. So should he strengthen his left, then he'll weaken his right. And should he strengthen his right, then he weakens his left. And if he sends in reinforcements everywhere, then everywhere he will be weak. So what's the principle here? What's Sun Tzu telling us? Sun Tzu is basically talking about concentrated effort. We need to concentrate our focus and work with our salespeople to develop the skills on those specific key areas that are going to get us the highest leverage, the highest return. So really what we're saying here is, when you consider the vast number of skills and applications that you could potentially develop and train your people on, rather than doing that, you should identify the key trigger points that drive buying and decision making and train and develop just those specific skills so that you leverage your time and you leverage your efforts and achieve a higher result because of that. Okay, so let me ask you this. Assuming you identified your top 3 specific critical customer interface points and then taught the specific skills, the specific tools, the specific mindsets and applications that are essential to move the sale forward from that particular point, do you feel that if you just focused your efforts there, you could increase your quality score by 10% over the next 90 days? And the fact is, we've done this on many occasions, and the results will typically come in a lot higher than 10%. But for the purpose of this exercise, let's just assume that you could improve your quality score by 10%. Okay, so now we take our 15% score that we got from productivity and we add it to the 10% score that we achieved by improving and increasing the quality of the interactions of our salespeople at the critical decision and interface points. And now let's assume that we could improve the motivation of our salespeople also by 10%. Which, by the way, if all you did was you Googled the Gallup, that's Gallup Q12 questionnaire. So this is a questionnaire that was developed by the Gallup Research Corporation, and it's a 12-point engagement questionnaire that has been well documented and highly validated as a powerful employee engagement questionnaire. You can pick it up for free over the internet, and if all you did was have all your people just complete that questionnaire, you would have a very, very good idea as to a number of things that you could do immediately without throwing any more money at your people to increase motivation by 10%. And just by the way, there are many methods that you can use and apply to drive up the motivation of your sales team. I've just suggested the Gallup Q12 because it's quick, it's expedient, and you can get a result really quickly. And of course, it's free. And that said, here at the Sales Coach Academy, we actually teach 6 of the key levers that you as a sales leader can pull to drive up sales team motivation other than using financial reward. And when you go through the Get More Sales Now formula training and implementation program, we actually go into detail with all 6 of those key levers, giving you the actual tools and the processes that you can apply to increase the motivation of all the individuals on your team. But for right now, for the purpose of this exercise, let's assume you've run your Gallup survey and you've identified some key areas to improve, and as a result, you've increased the motivation of the individuals on your sales team by 10%. So now we add that 10% to the 10% we've already accumulated in terms of quality and the 15% that we've accumulated in terms of productivity. And to that, you then apply the power of consistent and regular sales performance coaching. With each of your people, you're sitting down for a minimum of twice a month for about 45 to 90 minutes a session. And you focus your coaching efforts around productivity, around quality, and around motivation. Then this has a powerful leveraging impact on all 3 of those principal drivers of sales performance. In fact, we know that if you just sat down with your people twice a month in a formal coaching environment, you can double the impact of your productivity, the impact of your motivation, and the impact of the quality of your salespeople's interactions. So there you have it. What did I say when we started this webinar? I said that this is a very simple formula. If you'll increase the productivity of your salespeople, if you'll increase the quality of their interactions, and if you just dial up and increase their motivation, those 3, combined with sales performance coaching, have been proven time and time again to jack up sales performance and get you the increase in sales that you're looking for. Now, earlier I promised you that I would give you the actual 5-step productivity optimizer exercise that you can use and apply to increase the productivity of your sales team starting immediately. So make sure you've got a pen and paper handy. because I'm going to give you these 5 steps. They're easy, and again, they're simple to apply, and with very little effort. By just applying this 5-step process, you'll be able to boost the productivity of your salespeople starting today. So we'll go through the exercise, then I'm going to share with you a little about the Get More Sales Now formula implementation training program for those of you who may be interested, and then I'm going to give you the web link that you can go to download all the free tools that I promised you earlier. So let's take a look at our 5-step optimization process. So earlier we discussed the fact that right now within your sales team there is excess capacity for greater sales productivity. There is a whole lot more time that they could actively use to engage in selling. And then we said that the question you need to be asking yourself is, what if you could get your salespeople on your sales team to invest just 15% more time actively engaged in selling? What would that equate to in terms of additional sales? And remember, here we're talking about the same people, the same skill level, the only difference being they're investing 15% more time actively engaged in selling. So let me just give you a framework here. You are going to conduct what we call a sales productivity audit. This is where you're going to sit down with each individual salesperson and you're going to review their current workload, what they do, how they currently organize their day, their weeks, their months, where they're currently spending their time. And then you're going to create and establish an individual plan to implement changes. And obviously then you'll have to follow up with them to determine the impact of those changes. So that's really a broad overview of the productivity optimizer. But now let's get into detail and let me walk you through the 5 steps of this very simple but really incredibly powerful productivity optimization exercise. So your first step in this 5-step process is enrollment and productivity review. So this is where you'll sit down with each one of your salespeople individually and together agree that there's probably some capacity for them to improve their productivity, and then go about setting a sales productivity increase goal of 10 or 15 or 20%. And so to make this session really punchy, really effective, you'll probably need to block out at least 45 minutes to about an hour. If you're already currently conducting sales performance coaching sessions, then use this as one of your coaching sessions. Now, having enrolled them and having established goals, you now move on to step number 2, which is current productive time analysis. And so this is where we review their current diary or organizer and analyze where they are currently spending and investing their time. And typically what you'll find is that their time is going to fall into one of 12 categories. And you'll find these 12 categories listed on the PDF exercise attached. So once you and your salesperson have a good idea of where their time is going in terms of those 12 activities, the next step is, step 3, is to create and to fill out what we call the activity action analyzer. So this is where, during your conversation, on a piece of paper, you're going to create 3 columns. And in column 1, you're going to list all the low-hanging fruit areas where, with just maybe a few small adjustments, the salesperson can create more productive sales time. Just with a few small changes. These are what we call your low-hanging fruit areas. In the column 2, and you keep in mind, as you're going through their diary and their organizer, this is where together you're both plotting where they could make more productive changes. In column 2, you're going to list and prioritize the top 3 roadblocks that is holding the individual back from delivering more productive sales time. And then once you've listed all of these roadblocks, your goal then as a coach is to work with them and coach them through these roadblocks and come up with strategies and tactics and break through those barriers. And then finally in column 3, you need to list all the tripwires and roadblocks that are essentially common to all of your salespeople. So these are roadblocks or speed bumps that are actually internal, and they're going to most likely require some internal company process to be re-engineered to create a more optimum outcome. So let me give you a quick example of this. I was working with a client who sold medical devices, and what they found was that the sales reps were investing anywhere between 20 minutes to 1.5 hours at the end of every sales day filling in their CRM system with all the data from the day's activities. And they were all doing this with varying degrees of accuracy. So the national sales manager, who recognized this as an issue common to all of the salespeople, looked at re-engineering a new process. And what they came up with was simply by setting up a dedicated phone line and a template to follow. After every meeting, the salesperson would simply call through the results and action items from that meeting, leave a recorded message, and the recorded file would then be typed up either by an administrator in the office or an external transcriber, and that data then was uploaded into their CRM system. And so besides just cutting down on the amount of time that salespeople were spending filling out their Salesforce CRM system, they felt a whole lot better because now they didn't have to spend their evenings working, but more importantly, management enjoyed the fact that they didn't have to now nag to get the CRM filled out, which is the bane of many a sales manager's life. So again, column 3 is you're going to list all the roadblocks that are common to all your salespeople, because these are probably going to require some internal process to be re-engineered to get a better, more productive outcome across the board. Okay, so to repeat really quickly. Column number 1, we're going for the low-hanging fruit. Where can they get some quick gains in terms of their productivity? And here you're looking for a minimum of 10%, but anywhere between 10 and 20% should be a relative easy find for the vast majority of salespeople. In column 2, you're going to find out what their perception is of their major roadblocks, stopping them from doing more. So these are the areas that they perceive as the big roadblocks preventing them from investing more time engaging in active selling time. And then, as we said, your role here is to coach them to remove those roadblocks. And again, during our 3-day sales and implementation intensive program, we actually cover how to actually use what we call the roadblock breaker exercise, which not only clears the roadblock with the salesperson's permission, but actually gets them pumped up and motivated to actually go out and do what you've both agreed on. But unfortunately, we don't have time to get into the nitty-gritty details of that process here in this session. But essentially, you're going to coach them through breaking each of those roadblocks. And then the final column, as I said, these are the trip wires, if you like, that are common to all your people that are probably going to require some internal process adjustment. And then step number 4 is you need to work with each individual to establish a plan to implement the changes. And step number 5 then is where you follow up with a second one-on-one session to determine the impact of the changes. And if you follow those 5 simple steps, you can very, very quickly gain an extra 15% productivity from each of your salespeople. And by the way, the notes for this 5-step sales productivity optimizer will be included in the handout that you'll be able to download at the end of the session. Also, I'm going to throw in a surprise bonus for you. Earlier I mentioned that there are 6 drivers of sales team motivation other than money. And the first one is based around the concept that everybody on your sales team is actually motivated differently. And you as the motivator need to understand what it is that drives each of your people specifically. And we call that the motivational footprint. Well, in the book Bulletproof Your Sales Team, which is a book I wrote specifically for sales managers, covering the 5 key strategies that they must implement if they want a long-term successful career in sales management. Well, in the book, I actually unpack all the aspects of the motivational footprint. And as part of the download link, I'm actually going to give you the list of motivational footprint drivers that you can use. So there's 68 different motivators and demotivators, and it's written as almost a checklist that you can use and literally put in front of your salespeople and have them tick off what drives them and what turns them on and what turns them off from a motivational point of view. So that's my gift to you. Put it in front of your salespeople, have them fill it out, and have the discussion to find out what their motivational drivers are. And so that's my bonus gift to you. You know, one of the biggest challenges that you have attending a webinar like this, or any other course for that matter, is the fact that at the moment the session finishes, one typically goes back to finishing whatever it was that you were interrupted by, or you go back and answer all the emails that have come through in the meantime, or go out and put that fire out that started while you were away. And so typically then, for the vast majority of us, we don't get to make or implement what we've just learned to make a difference in our business. And really, before we know it, weeks have gone by, and the training that we've just been through is now just a distant memory. Because it's very often not the concepts themselves that stop us from implementing our new learnings, but rather it's the time and the execution and all the distractions that tend to drift and fall by the wayside. And so this is why when we developed the 3-day intensive Get More Sales Now formula training and implementation program, much of our emphasis is actually on implementation. Every one of the sales managers who goes through this powerful training program each get their very own implementation coach, and that coach helps them to apply and execute what they've learned on the course into their workplace. Which is, by the way, the reason why we're able to offer a 3 times money back guarantee. Because yes, the principles and the formulas and the concepts that we teach are great and they've been proven to work. And yes, the program will give you lots of tools and templates and tactical processes and recipes that you can implement. And really the key driver that makes this program so successful is that we are there every step of the way, holding your hand, keeping you on track and focused, helping you to implement your learnings, and ultimately get you the results that you've paid for. Also, by the way, prior to even attending the 3-day weekend intensive, as a participant, you'll actually go through a strategic planning session with one of our sales performance coaches to determine the exact sales results that you're looking for by your attendance on the program. And then that way we can be sure that you hit the target. The program itself goes in depth into every aspect of the Get More Sales Now formula. So we'll take you through the whole formula right from the start, making sure that you have the right people and the right process and the right proficiency, all the way through to the 6 levers that don't include money, which you can pull to drive up the motivation of your salespeople. And each of these principles are broken down and you'll be given exercises and tools and templates that you'll be able to take and apply and use in your business to drive your sales results forward. Let me also say that participation is limited. We only accept 20 people on the program. So therefore, if you do have an interest, we'll ask you to actually complete an expression of interest application. And in that way, we can then get the ball rolling. So if you have an interest, then go to www.gmsnformula, that's formula.com. So www.gmsn for Nelly formula.com, where you'll be able to read more about the program, see what it is exactly that we cover off during that program, and see whether in fact this is something that would suit you and that would benefit your business as a whole. And then finally here today, at the beginning I said that I would give you the audit tool and the slide deck, as well as I said I'd give you that bonus, the motivational footprint, and you can get that by going to www.gmsnformula.com/webinar. Again, that's gmsnformula.com/webinar. So folks, I appreciate your time, I really do, and I certainly hope that for your time invested, you've gotten some really good ideas, some really good practical ways that you can now go back to your sales team and implement to get a lift in sales. It's not easy out there. I understand that. I meet with clients every day. And that said, however, if we want a competitive edge, then as the late Jim Rohn would say, don't wish that things were better, wish you were better. And so you've taken really the first step by attending this webinar, and I congratulate you for that. I look forward to hopefully seeing you take the second step and join us on our 3-day intensive Get More Sales Now Formula program. So until we meet again, thank you for your time, thank you for your attention. And so I'll leave you with one last question to ponder. What will you do today to ensure the success of your career and your sales team tomorrow?